Welcome to Menopause Monday, and today I'm going to be talking about why menopause might be making you fat. So it's a couple of reasons. Primarily, as we go into the menopause, we use up the eggs that we've been given. Most of us were born with around about 400 eggs, and of course, once we have gone through all those eggs, our ovaries start to go into retirement. So as our ovaries go into retirement, the estrogen and the progesterone hormones in our body start to decline. Progesterone declines faster than estrogen, and progesterone is one of our hormones that helps to make us feel a bit calmer, and estrogen dominance makes us feel more stressed. So we've got a double-pronged effect. The fact that progesterone that makes us feel calmer is reducing, so that's causing us to feel more anxious. Our cortisol levels go up, one of our stress hormones, and estrogen dominance also causes our cortisol levels to rise, which compounds that effect. So what's probably one of the reasons why during the menopause you can start to suddenly have that onset of anxiety that you've never had before. You've got that niggling sort of sensation of stress just bubbling under the surface. Can also explain the rapid and violent mood swings that can go along with menopause. It's not that you're becoming this crazy woman, although you might feel that you are. It's your hormones. And the good news is they do eventually balance out. And the good news is that there are things that you can do in order to alleviate the passage through the menopausal years. So essentially, estrogen dominance raises our cortisol levels. Cortisol is also catabolic, so it actually breaks down the muscle tissue in the body. So you remember, you've heard of anabolic steroids. They're designed to build, really bulk up muscles. Catabolic is the opposite effect. So cortisol actually destroys or breaks down the muscle tissue, which then turns it into glucose, which then gets deposited into and around our body as fat. This is why a lot of menopausal women will end up with a sort of barrel-shaped belly, and the muscle tends to get taken away from the thigh muscles and the gluteals, the butt muscles, and so you'll essentially you can become like an apple on little stick legs. That is largely due to the effects of cortisol breaking down the muscles in our butt and our thigh muscles, the biggest muscles of the body, and then that gets converted into sugar, and then the sugar gets deposited as fat, predominantly around our middle area. So to help get rid of that process happening, there are several things that we can do. Primarily, stress reduction techniques are very, very important. Vitamin B1 is also incredibly important in helping us manage stress and just be really beneficial for the nervous system. But also, it's really important that the protein that we take in, that we're able to assimilate that and metabolize that effectively. Now, it's a myth to think, well, if I eat lots of protein, I'm just going to be building up more muscle. No, because the body can only take in so much protein in one go. Any excess protein just gets turned to fat. So, like you can go out, in the olden days when we could go out and socialize, in the not too distant future, you could go out and, they'd have those competitions to see if you could eat the entire steak, you got to eat it for free. Well, unfortunately, there is a penalty with that, because that excess steak or meat that you've eaten just gets turned into fat. So the important thing is for us to make the most of the protein that we do have, but to not actually overdo the protein. And what we need is when we eat protein, so when we take protein into the body, we break that down. It gets broken down into its constituent pieces, which are known as amino acids. They are then used to be built back up again by the various enzymes and digestive processes that then help us rebuild stronger muscle. So it's very important that we have the right nutrients that enable the enzymes to do their jobs with the amino acids so that we can actually build lean protein. Well, we need trace minerals, and we also need potassium. Potassium on a sort of daily average, we need about 4,700 milligrams. There are very few people actually who eat sufficient potassium, because it's around about 7 to 8 cups of vegetables a day. There are people that don't eat any vegetables or potassium containing foods a day. Some of them are white beans, salmon, avocado, spinach, the greens of beets, you will probably also think, oh, banana, I'll just eat lots of bananas. You'd need to eat about 11 bananas a day in order to get your potassium daily average. So think very carefully about introducing more vegetables, leafy green vegetables ideally, into your diet. They will help you with your potassium levels. And try and eat plenty of vegetables throughout the course of the day. When I have my daily superfood shake, I also add cauliflower in actual fact, but it's still going to be containing some potassium. My shake itself is very beneficial for trace minerals and things like that. Because our ground, our soil is so over-farmed these days, it's actually very difficult for us to get the right amount of trace minerals in the produce that we eat. So, try and err on the organic side of things if you're able to afford organic, or indeed grow your own. I know there's been an explosion of allotments and gardeners and vegetable growers over the last 12 months. So, really, apart from the joy and the reward of eating fresh vegetables that you've grown yourself, know that you're also going to be getting the chance are you're going to be getting a lot better return on your effort, because the trace minerals that you're going to be getting as a result of eating your homegrown fruits and vegetables are going to be higher than stuff that's come from land that's been over-farmed. We also need to reduce the amount of refined sugars and the excessive carbs that so many of us eat. Most of us, if you have a bowl of spaghetti bolognese, you have a massive bowl of spaghetti. That's just like way more carbohydrates than you need in one sitting. I follow the nutrition program that I use. It uses containers, small containers, and that is a really easy way of measuring out the amount of carbs that you need, and indeed any food group. But the interesting thing about that is when I first started doing it, it's just like, oh my goodness, I have been overeating carbs to such a degree. And when I follow the container system closely, the results are amazing, and you feel so energized as well. So do consider backing off the amount of carbs that you're eating and replace that sort of stomach space with vegetables. The reason that is also very important to understand is not so much just the bloating that can come with carbs. It's also the fact that when we're eating a lot of refined sugars, when we've got too many carbohydrates circulating in our system, the insulin stops our cells from absorbing so much sugar from our blood, because it's protecting our cells from a sugar toxicity, as it were. Well, also insulin has a role in absorbing those amino acids that come from the protein which we eat, and we need, when it breaks down, to then build new protein. So if we have that, if we're eating too many sugars, the chances are we're also not allowing sufficient protein into our cells in order to build lean protein. So it's not just a carbohydrates per se thing, it's understanding why. If there's too much sugar in your system, there's going to be a key that locks your cells, which is going to stop protein getting into the cell in order to do the job it needs to do. So I know it's getting a little bit complicated, but it's really important that I think you understand the entire perspective of this situation, because it's not just plain sugars and it's not just cutting down carbs, it's understanding why. And they have, if we can't get the protein into the cells, it means that we can't build up lean muscle. And atrophy is one of the reasons why you're putting weight on around the middle and you're losing it on your legs and your butt. Also, if you decide to go to the doctor and say, could I have a test to see what my potassium levels are like? 98% of our potassium is actually inside the cell. So if they give you a blood test, the chances are it's not really going to pick up the amount of potassium that you've got in your body, because it's going to be trapped in the cell. So, if you've already had, you've had a recent blood tests and your potassium reads okay, it's not necessarily going to be reading true. You'll know if you have enough potassium because you know how many cups of vegetables that you're eating a day. If you're not eating between 6 and 8 cups of veggies a day or salad, chances are you are deficient in potassium. So to prevent the muscle atrophy, as it were, and to prevent that fat gain around the middle, you need to be focusing on exercises like high intensity interval training. So HIIT exercises, they're also really good for the menopausal lady, because they're not spiking our cortisol to such a degree, because any exercise, prolonged exercise, is going to elevate your cortisol levels to a degree. But we don't want it to be elevated to such a degree that it's actually having a negative impact on you. So high intensity interval training is going to be very beneficial for you. Also including some aspect of weight training, because that's going to help to build up the muscle, but it also strengthens your bones. So it's really important as we go through the menopause, particularly if you're going through it naturally, to make sure that you're focusing on bone health, and that is by strength training with weights. Ideally, you can strength train with just your body weight, like press ups or the plank, but you're going to get a more effective workout session if you can incorporate weights, because it just means that a lot of people will say, oh well, I'll do some press ups and I'll do some planks soon, and then they never do because they hate them. So it's important that you find a method that you enjoy doing. And if you absolutely hate the idea of exercise, well, you may just have to work around finding a version that you enjoy. Long distance walking is also really beneficial for us, because it doesn't spike cortisol, but it's also not going to build muscle. It's going to help tone what you've got, but you do actively need to work on something that's going to build the muscle to help counteract the atrophy that's happening, because of the fact that we've got estrogen dominance, and because of the fact our cortisol levels are naturally going to be slightly higher, as well as all the stresses that come with midlife and just dealing with the things that we deal with in midlife, as well as dealing with the menopause, which of course is an added stressor to us. Another thing you can do is focus on prioritizing your sleep, because sleep is very good. It helps us release our human growth hormone. Human growth hormone will help you build muscle. It'll help reduce that atrophy, to slow down that atrophy, or even counteract it. So prioritize your sleep. Now, I know during the menopause it can be really hard, particularly if you've got hot flashes at night time, that stress, that anxiety that's coming up. I've got a really helpful sleep ebook that if you want to grab it, I'll drop the link in the comments below. You're more than welcome to grab that. It's got like my top tips for helping make sure that you get a good night's sleep. There's also something that I've started recently doing, and it's such a simple thing, but it's this short affirmation. And I normally can get to sleep quite easily, but I normally wake up at sort of 2:30, 3:30 in the morning. And as I did last night, I found it really hard to get back off. My son's in the Marines training. It's his birthday today. He was born at 4:25. So I was sort of lying there, counting down the minutes and remembering, how it was 19 years ago. But this little affirmation is, I find it really easy to fall back off to sleep, or I find it's really easy to go to sleep. And when you focus on those words, because you're focusing on saying those words in your head, it's taking you away from the things that you're thinking about. But also there's something really comforting about it. It's almost like you're giving yourself permission to go back to sleep. So I really snuggle up, and it's just like, it's really easy to go back to sleep. It's really easy to go back to sleep. It's a bit like Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz clicking her red shoes. It's home sweet home, or whatever she's saying. And I feel like that when I'm lying in bed, telling myself it's really easy to go to sleep. And so long as I focus on those words, it works every single time. Now, you might find your mind will deviate. If it does, just accept it, bring it back. When you've realized, I'm thinking, I'm squirreling again, just bring it back to those words, settle yourself down. It's really easy to go to sleep, and you will go back to sleep. I absolutely promise you. It's just been so beneficial. So if you want that healthy sleeping habits ebook, just click the link below. That will take you to it. And if this has been helpful, if you know of anybody else who's doing the menopause naturally, you want some tips and strategies, on my IGTV I've got a whole collection of dealing with menopausal symptoms. On my Instagram I've got a couple of guides as well. If you have a look at my guides, all of my videos are in there. So it's just a lot of people have been talking to me recently about the frustration of going to the doctor and talking about menopause, and they just don't really grasp the situation properly. I think in their defense, I don't think they get an awful lot of tuition on the menopause. And I think also, until you've actually experienced it yourself, it's like a male doctor trying to explain childbirth to you. They can't really, because they might read it in a book, but until you've experienced it, it's a whole different kettle of fish. And that is nothing against male doctors. There are some amazing male doctors. I had a male doctor throughout my pregnancy, but you know, he's got no concept of that experience as a woman giving birth. And I think it's the same with menopause. Whether until you've been through it yourself and experienced some of the weirdness of it, and to also work out what works for you. I know what works for me won't necessarily work for everyone, but I can certainly share the tips that I've discovered along the way, and also the things that have made a massive difference to me. So when I first started the menopause, I didn't know all the stuff I know now, and I just became really, really curious. I would also obviously lead a fairly healthy lifestyle, and that's definitely supported me throughout the menopause. So, you know, if you've got a subject that you'd like me to discuss in one of these, please send me a comment, leave me a message. I'll make sure to add it to the rotation of videos. I'm here every Monday doing my Menopause Monday. And if anybody else that you think this would help, please share it with them. They are all free resources. And if you want that sleep ebook, click the link below and I'll make sure to get that out to you. So have a great rest of your Monday and catch you next week.